Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Cerulean Arts Gallery. We'll get started. Welcome to tonight's tour and talk for the current collective exhibition, which features the work of Kitty Caparella, excuse me, Anne Marble, Jeanne O'Shell, Michael Smith, and Christine Stoughton. Now, the exhibition is on view through June 26th. You can come and see it in person. We're open Wednesday through Friday, 10 to 6, Saturday, Sunday, 12 to 6. And you can also see and purchase everything on our website. So I'll put a link to that in the chat later on. We're recording this, so we're going to put it on our YouTube channel. So if you want to watch it again, or someone you know couldn't make it, they can hear it again. So yeah, and you want to please stay muted during the talk. If you want to ask a question, you could put it in the chat and I can field it for you as we go, so you don't have to wait till the end. But please stay muted because we pick up your background noise. So I'm going to spotlight Tina's video and we'll get started. And the first artist we're going to visit is Michael Smith. Hello, Michael.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
So would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Oh, okay. Well, I've been showing with the gallery for quite a while now. In the front gallery before they had the collective gallery. We've had some shows there. So, and I've known Mike for a long time, Mike and Tina for a long time. I used to be the admissions director at PAFA in a much former life. That was quite a while ago, but that's how I met Mike and Tina. And so, so we've been friends ever since the student days. So in this show here, it's been a little bit of a change for me from the last show I had, I think something like 14 months ago, where the images in this show are far more referential. They're actual places. A lot of my work starts with a sketch in a small sketchbook that I carry around with me. And so when my wife and I go to these places, this just happens to be Mackinac Island, where we were last summer. We were married on Mackinac Island 7 years ago. So we were able to have a sort of a kind of a post-pandemic revisit to Mackinac Island. So this particular painting came from sketches that were done on site and then brought back to the studio. And before this group of work, my work was more, it's still shape related, but it wasn't as referential as this body of work is, that is from actual places and is not so much removed from what it is in its real life. So they're changing the way that I work. I'm still very shape and color oriented, very geometric oriented, but these are actual real places for me. And so this particular painting is in a small community down in the Chesapeake Bay that we have friends who have a house. And even during the pandemic, would go down for visits, and I would just, I was sort of captivated by this small little community that's kind of a time capsule. I doubt that it's changed much over the years. And so I just started drawing the shapes of the homes that are in this small little bayfront community. And I had a couple of paintings from this area in the last show, and they were kind of the odd ducks out from that show because all the other works were more memory-driven images. They were places, but they weren't as direct references to places as these are. They were more sort of a collection of shapes that went together, and the images reminded me of certain places. These images, as I said, are taken from actual drawings that start in a sketchbook. Occasionally, if I'm in a hurry, I will take a photograph of something with my phone that I will use as a source material for sketches. And then I will sketch and redraw, and eventually they'll sort of be ready to be transferred onto, these are all wood panels. They're gessoed and it's acrylic paint. There's some colored pencil that I use for an underdrawing. And sometimes colored pencil will be used as part of the medium. And so that's the way these come together. These are we went down to the Outer Banks on one of our trips, and this is really just homes in the Kitty Hawk area. So we stayed at a home there for about a week with our 2 dogs, and this was basically what I saw around this house that we were staying in. And again, I had my sketchbook, and I would just sort of draw what I saw, not to capture any high level of detail, but mostly just to look at things in kind of a simplified form. I just wanted to break things down to kind of their essence and their shapes, and looking at composition. And that's why the drawing is so important to me, because I work out compositions in these sketchbooks. I'm always working on a square. My sketchbooks are square too. Sometimes they have little grid patterns in them. So the grid pattern is easy enough to transfer onto the panel, though I don't often do that. I tend to work fairly loosely. I do use a straight edge sometimes, and sometimes I just will draw freehand. And so I'll gesso the panels, and then I'll use a colored pencil, mostly kind of a red or a sienna type pencil, to do the drawing. And if you look close enough, you can still see the kind of the outline of these colored pencils that I use for the underdrawing. And then it's about choosing color. I work in acrylic paint, and acrylic paint is great for the way that I work, because I do feel a necessity to get the whole surface covered, to get a color down, whether it's the right or wrong color, just to get it down onto the panel. And acrylic paint, as most of you probably know, it dries pretty quickly. So as I work through and I get paint down on the canvas and I get rid of the white gesso, then I'm able to really start to get into kind of the meat and bones of the composition. And I often will change color as I go. I will overpaint. Acrylic paint is great for that. I do like to see sometimes where the initial color comes through to the secondary color, and sometimes even a tertiary color. You can use alcohol on, like this painting here that Tina is showing, the bottom tree form. You can use alcohol on a Q-tip, and it will take away the first layer of paint when you're working with acrylics. So you can, in some way like oil paint, where you can sort of scrape away and see the undercolor with oil paint. With acrylics, you can use something like just rubbing alcohol, and it will loosen up the paint, the dry paint, and you can begin to see what's underneath. And so I often have multiple layers of paint, and sometimes I will scrub away the top layer with a Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol, just to get more depth, because these are all very flat and they're intended to be flat. I was initially trained as a printmaker, and with printmaking, a lot of things are very graphic. And so that's kind of my working method. It's been that way for a long time. As I said, I feel like I've turned a little bit of a creative corner with this group of work. These particular paintings are just from our neighborhood. I live out in Marion Station with my wife and our 2 Airedales. And during the pandemic, we were doing a lot of dog walking, as we still do a lot of dog walking. Our dogs are fairly active. And so when we were unable to go anywhere or do anything, we were just walking our dogs. And so as I would walk my dogs through our neighborhood, I would use my phone to take pictures of the homes, or sort of a collection of homes and backyards. And then I would bring those pictures back to the studio, and then I would start to make drawings, and then on we go. The drawings, eventually I'd be satisfied with a drawing, and I'd be able to transfer that drawing onto the panel with colored pencil, and then start the painting work. the paintings sometimes can be fairly laborious. Once I get the paint down, then I'm going to start to activate the shapes with either some small dot patterns, or as you can see in this painting, sort of the vertical lines. As I've been making the work, even with the last body of work, I felt that it needed something more. I've always been very drawn to kind of a Cubist school. And if you go and look at Cubist paintings, they are very shape oriented, but within those shapes, they're very sort of activated with dots and dashes. And so I've always really liked that type of look. And I'm bringing that type of working method into these paintings. And I've sort of been working this way, as I said, but in a less referential way in the past than these. These particular paintings here are from a small community in Florida, where my wife's brother and his wife live in a fairly new development in Hudson, Florida. And we go down for visits and we walk through the development, and I was just sort of captivated by the shapes of these brand new homes coming together so quickly. And so these are sketchbook driven. I didn't take photos of these. I was able to draw them out in my sketchbook, and they're pretty close to what they are. So these homes tend to go up almost overnight, it seems, and the development grows and leaps and bounds every time we go down there. But it's been kind of a unexpected creative resource for me. I really didn't expect it, but as I walked past these homes and I watched them being built so quickly, it really sort of resonated with me, and I was able to come back, and we're going to continue to take trips down to see them, and I expect more paintings to come from this Hudson series. So these are just brand new homes that are being built in this development that was once out in the middle of nowhere, that is beginning to sprawl into a much bigger place than it was when we initially went there. So these are the Hudson series. And I kind of feel more connected to the work now because there are actual places. Not to say that the last work, I did a series of works in the last show that was driven from a trip to Palm Springs. They looked a little bit like this, but they were more shape oriented. And you could kind of bring a bunch of things to them. You could bring your own sensibilities to them, and you could make up other things. I don't feel that these give maybe the viewer that much latitude to make up other things. I think they are more what they are. And for the time being, I'm kind of happy with that, at least for me, because I feel more connected to the work. And this is another painting from the Hudson series. Sort of these brand new kind of geometric style homes that are going up rather quickly. So
Michael, you're teaching a workshop next Saturday.
Yes, I really will bring to the workshop just what I've been talking about, my working method, and it's just how I get from start to finish. And so it's just a one-day workshop, and there's a number of ways that you can approach this, but I am just going to talk about the way my creative process and the various steps I go through, and how you might want to stretch those out or change those. And because the work is in the gallery, obviously, I want to use the work as a jumping off point for people to maybe find another way of working, or maybe if you're working in this way already, maybe there's something that I'm doing that you're not doing that might ring a bell with you, or help promote new work. And so, I mean, there's so many ways to approach this, but the work is very shape oriented, it's very geometric oriented, it's very color oriented. So we're going to try to cram all that into a workshop, and hopefully have a good time doing it. I'm delighted to have the work up, because it's so great to be able just to go right to the gallery and show, and without having to look at an iPad or a computer, to actually have the work. Because I think when you get closer to the paintings, these particular paintings, that you can see that the surface, even though they're really flat, the surface is pretty active. There's a lot going on within the shapes. And so they look flat from a distance, but when you get closer to them, hopefully they kind of have a resonance and kind of a buzz to them that I think kind of amplifies the color. So we're going to try to, as I said, try to cram all that into a one-day workshop. So
Thanks,
that's
Michael.
it.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I put a link to the workshop in the chat. You can still sign up if you're interested.
Okay.
Thanks again. And now we'll move on to Christine Stoughton. Hello, Christine. You're muted.
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank Michael and Tina for hanging the show. I feel my work is somewhat challenging to exhibit, so I'm always curious as to how they are going to show it, mainly because it's a lot of different materials. My work is very much about exploring the qualities in a material. And when I was studying at the Academy, I was told that I like to use works, materials that had a memory, which basically is true. For example, when I use paper, and paper wrinkles, and you can't get wrinkles out of paper. So I use the wrinkles in the paper to help create what I want to create. This is a monotype. It's called Wooed by the Moon. And basically it's an image of a lotus leaf kind of being pulled towards the moon. And it's ink on paper. This is another monotype. It's an imagined organic form that's rising. It's called Rising. I really enjoy this piece because it has layers of transparency behind it. It has a very ephemeral quality. Excuse me, I have a cold, so my voice isn't as strong as I would like it to be. The ephemeral and change is very much a part of what my work is about. I'm always trying to capture that, plus movement, even though the works are still, I really try to incorporate movement. This is called Land and Sea, and clearly it is inspired by Hakusai's Wave, the woodblock print. It's a monotype and a collage. It's my version of a wave. It's about the energy and the power of the wave. And it's a monotype and collage.
So Christine, how did you end up being a mixed media artist? Did you start with one thing and then accumulate over time, or were you always that way?
I think, well, I've always been a sculptor, and I've always put things in my sculpting, and I think I approach the 2D works the same way I approach the sculpture. It's very much about building. When I was at the Academy, I studied primarily sculpture and printmaking. So a lot of the works here are prints that I have then taken sections out of and used in the collaging process. So I construct my 2D images like I construct my 3D images. This is called And the Beanstalk. It's a reference to Jack and the Beanstalk. It's a monotype. And for those of you who aren't familiar with monotypes, basically it's a painting that is done on a plexiglass surface or some surface, any surface that'll release the ink. And it is then printed with a press onto paper. So the image is transferred, and it's a lot, printmaking is a lot about layering. So your first image is rarely what you stay with, especially the way I work. I'm constantly layering different colors on top as well as different materials. The one next to it, this is was inspired basically by the paper. It's a very textured, beautiful paper, and actually a work of art in itself. So I felt it needed a very delicate touch. So these are printed images of organic materials that I then printed and collaged on. The theme of this show for me is a nature's imperative, which is basically the power and the resiliency of nature, and how it finds ways of surviving despite our destructive tendencies towards it. These are collections of sculptures, mixed media. They're primarily made with wire and twine and dyed fibers, and wood and vines, and a handmade paper called abaca, which when you make the sheets, you apply it wet, but as it dries, it becomes very stiff, and it almost becomes like a skin around the forms. This is from a series called Protection and Escape. In my so they're like little pods that once housed something, but then they had to leave. I love these pieces because they can hang on the wall, they can sit on the floor, they can be mounted on a pedestal. They're just very versatile. In my former life, I was a psychologist. I guess I still am practicing, but once a psychologist, always a psychologist. So a lot of my work has psychological conceptual themes. And when I was thinking about protection and escape, I was thinking about how, you know, as parents, we need to protect our children, but as they leave us, we need to let them go. Otherwise, we imprison them. One of my first explorations of this topic was I built a giant, it was like a giant crib. This was when I was at Papin. It was made out of bamboo, and it was bamboo and wire. So it almost looked like a bird cage, but it was a crib. But in the bottom of the crib, there was a trap door that could be opened so that the child could escape. But unfortunately, I couldn't get it out of the room. So that piece didn't survive. I've never built a piece, made that mistake again. Always measure your dimensions before you try to leave a space. I spend a lot of time walking on the beach, and this is a drawing mixed media piece that I did from an object, a dried object that I picked up off the beach. I love, drawing shadows. I love casting shadows with my sculpture, and I love drawing shadows in my work. This is a woodcut and chincolle and monotype. And chincolle is where you add additional the yellow here is the Shinkale. You add additional paper during the printing process so that it becomes one with the print, which is how it differs from collage, because collage is added later. So this is that. And I love the textures. This was a lot inspired by the textures that were inherent in the fibers in the Shinkale.
Christine, do you have a press in your studio?
I use other people's presses. A lot of this, like that one, was actually hand printed. I do a lot of hand printing. So when I don't have a press, I figure out how to hand print it. These are called ladders. And it's an example of it. They're Harry Lauder walking stick pieces of branches. Actually, this tree was given to me by my college roommates as a present. And these are some of the branches that came off of it. And it's an example of using a material that dictates almost how you're supposed to put it together. It also has the handmade abaca paper, and this is a lot about the shadows that are cast on the wall. I do these sculptures almost as an excuse to do these drawn shadows. I think of my sculptures more as drawings in space than just as sculptures. I revisit the theme of ladders a lot in my work because of the metaphor of us moving from one plane to another, or one state of consciousness to a higher state of consciousness, or from the earthly plane to the spiritual plane. So ladders appear almost in every show in a different format. This is mixed media drawings on Mylar. There's a painting by Vincent van Gogh at the Philadelphia Museum of Art called Rain. And it's one of my all-time favorite paintings ever. And Vincent van Gogh looked at Japanese prints a lot, as do I. So after I saw his painting, I decided to do my own version. It's nothing like his, but of water imagery running down like a window pane. And I presented them in this manner because I really did not want to hide them behind glass. I have a problem with glass. I would prefer if nothing had to be put behind glass. But these are pretty tough, so I made the screen and mounted the Mylar onto Mylar. I like black and white a lot. And this is black and white. This is a mixed media piece called Nature's Imperative. Mainly when I was creating this, I was just thinking of organic, energetic growth movement, movement up. There is a lot of prints that I have torn sections out of and adhered. I really enjoy the tearing of images and the different edges you can get with the torn, different qualities of tearing that different types of paper give you. So this is a lot about transparency, about building, about what's underneath. So it's probably every medium. it's ink, it's acrylic, it's oil, it's pastel, it's charcoal, it's a built image for sure. And what's interesting is, while it's certainly organic growth, there are hidden horse heads in there, which, especially when you turn it horizontally, I think is channeling the hours I've spent with my daughter. She's an equestrian at stables, and that horse energy is in there. I wasn't aware of it when I was doing it, but it's clearly there. So this long horizontal piece is called Undersong, the one on top. It is a collection of monotypes done on tea bags. And I enjoy using tea bags because the staining, I pick my tea bag based on the stains, and the stains give me a jumping off point for deciding on the images that I'm going to place on them, print on them. And then it's collaged together. Underneath are more of the Protectionist and Escape series. They're in little specimen jars.
So why jars here?
Well, I was in a show about comparing Da Vinci's art to his science, and it just went along with the science theme. So I came up with the idea of the specimen jars. And also, they're delicate and they're small. I think it makes them, in a way, more precious. And it forces one to take the time to look at them. There's so much that is beautiful in the small and the delicate that we can overlook unless we highlight it. So I attempt to do that. This is called Nature's Scaffold. And again, it's ink on tea bags. And this is inspired when I was in visiting China and saw, it was in the 80s, and all the scaffolding was made out of bamboo. And it was just so beautiful. And again, it's the ladder theme. So that is my interpretation of bamboo scaffolding. This is part of a theme that I like to return to, which is native halos. Because of it's a way to honor the Native Americans' respect for nature and their belief of the connection between the natural and the spiritual. So that's what inspired this piece. This is unfurling. And basically I was thinking about the opening up of a plant as it burst forth. And so again, it's a lot of collage, paint, every medium. And it looks black here, but it's really quite purple. And I had a lot of fun with this. I did this, it's interesting. I did this after I did the undersong one. The undersong was very small and delicate and intense and fragile. And I really needed to be looser and boost, just, you know, exert myself in a different physical way in the making of this piece. So this just sort of happened. And it probably took me the little piece, undersong, took me as long to do as this, but it was just a very different physical experience. It's very different when you work delicately with your hand versus ripping and tearing and gluing and adding and painting. And so it's an antidote to the more intense, delicate work.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
And next we come to Jeanne O'Shell. Hi, Jeanne.
Hi, thank you, Mike and Tina. I'm Jeanne. I graduated from PAFA in 2014, and I do the creepy doll paintings, or that's what all my friends call them. It's actually not intentional that some of them come out so creepy. I really see the dolls as being beautiful, and I'm really trying my best to capture their beauty. And I feel like sometimes I'm successful in that and sometimes not so much, but that's the way it goes for us artists. A lot of them are titled things like Princess Platinum or Platinum Queen, I think this one is. I really like girly things. I'm all about that. So everything's kind of got this girly feeling to it, even my fiber pieces. So most of my paintings are in oil, if not all of them in this show. The fiber pieces are kind of a nice way for me to get away from my paintings for a little while and kind of explore color in like a slower pace. This one I think is called Pink Lemonade right here. I really just love texture. So it's another way for me to explore different kinds of textures too. You'll see that I love doing these pom-pom things too. I think they're really fun. You'll see that in my paintings is that a lot of them have this like really thick, rough texture to them. And I get that, yeah, you can kind of see it in the corner of this one right here. I get that I let my paint dry on the palette, and then I chop it up into little pieces and I mix it with wet paint. So that's a thing I've been doing for a couple of years now. And it's just like a way to get a little bit of variety in the surface. So this painting is part of 4 paintings called Rumba. They're Rumba 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're all based on a series of collages I did. I actually have, I know I'm really small on the screen, but I actually have one right here. And they're all based on little tiny collages. Oh, there we go. So here's one. And I'm kind of trying to go for a trompe-l'oeil type of effect. Like I'm not only trying to mimic the colors in the collage, but I'm trying to pick up on little things like the shadows and things like that that's going on. And I'm trying to make the colors well, maybe a little more vivid than they are initially in the collage. And the collages are made from like just scrap paper I have lying around and some washi papers in there. The initial kind of like composition of this skirt and the legs, it was a drawing I did in my sketchbook. Most of my paintings I start with in my sketchbook. And then sometimes I leave them there for a while and I don't look at them. And then I kind of later I'm flipping through my sketchbook and I go, oh, that would make a good painting. So that's kind of what happened with this one. So I basically did some tracing paper on my sketch and I kind of sketched out the skirt and then the legs, and I kind of moved them around in different places depending on what I thought looked good. And in this one, I kind of like that little flappy thing going on with the skirt. I think that's kind of clever. I think I should do that again. Kind of looks like the little, like the paper's falling off there. Yeah, I have this color I really love. It's called Luminous Opera. It's like this bright pink color, and you probably see it in almost every single painting that I have. And some other colors that I'm really like excited about are cadmium green and like lemon yellow. You'll see those a lot in my paintings too. I'm trying to think of others. I do this, oh, I forget what the name of that blue is called. It's a really light blue. It's not quite cerulean blue. It's another color that I use a lot. Okay, so I've got, I don't even know what to say about this wall right here. So I called this one on the left, Jacob and Esau, just because I was thinking about the biblical story of them fighting in the womb, and it just looked like they were inside some type of fleshy type of thing, and they were fighting with each other. This one's definitely from my imagination mostly. A lot of my doll paintings, I sketch from my dolls, and this one is like 100% imagination. And it's one that I've worked over and over and over again. And it's got this really shiny quality to it, which is kind of weird. But one of the things I did for this and a lot of the other pieces is I did a lot of glazing. So after I've worked on the painting for a while, I do a really thin wash of a color. This was like a reddish color. And I think that's kind of been helping me a little bit because sometimes my colors are a little disconnected and fragmented looking. So I think sometimes the glaze helps to unify it a little bit. And this one was that pink color, that luminous opera that I like to use so much. I put over everything. So that kind of toned down the green a little bit and brought out some of the pinks. And you can see it, like, especially in the wings, you can see some of the pink there. And the deal with the frog paintings is I just really like frogs, and there's not really a rhyme or reason for it. They're like my favorite animal, and I really wish I could have one, but in order to have one, you'd have to have like crickets and bugs in your house, and I'm not allowed to do that. So yeah, I really think they're fun shapes, and I like the colors of them. I think my paintings are probably going to be going. I think my paintings are going to be going in more of this kind of humorous direction. I feel like there's something about the really serious representational thing of the dolls. Like, it's kind of exhausting, not only for other people, but for me to keep seeing like these kind of like tragic looking dolly things. I think kind of like making it more fun and a little more quirky that's kind of what's exciting me right now. And then I have this one, which I call The Littlest Unicorn. And that was like my first attempt of trying to combine my fiber pieces and my painting together. And someone told me it looks like it belongs in like a baby's room. And I guess that's true. But it was a first attempt. So what can I say? I tried my best to kind of like have the fiber and the paint interact with each other. So this is as big as my fiber pieces have gotten so far. This one's red velvet cake. And I love doing these different size pom-poms. It just gets like this really fun texture to them. I used to do all of my fiber pieces on a loom, and now I've been using kind of this plastic backing to them and kind of, you know, doing this embroidery type of thing to them. And that's been working pretty well. It's been holding the pieces and it's been pretty supportive. This one on the left, I have to give a special shout out to Blair Stambow, who was at my previous talk, and she saw my doll paintings, and she had an old Barbie doll from I guess it was the 70s, and she gave me this doll, and that's a painting of the doll she gave me. I keep repeating this theme of Jacob's Ladder, keeps going throughout my pieces. And I just really particularly like the look of that flower. And I like the idea, the biblical story of Jacob's Ladder. I also think that the feeling of these flowers are kind of like, I think it adds to the creepy quality a little bit because it's kind of like a form of decay. I think a lot about the relationships that women have to other women. I know it doesn't look like it at all. I get that comment a lot that like, oh, when you talk about your work, I don't pick that up. But I think a lot about women's relationships to themselves and to other women. And I think it's really interesting how women, as opposed to men, they kind of have this need to like preserve their facial features and like preserve their beauty. And the flowers are kind of like, it doesn't matter, decay is going to happen at some point. Like you're always going to be taken back by the earth at some point. This one's called Sisters. That's in relationships between sisters. I think about these two, like there's a kind of like a tenseness between them. It doesn't feel like they're like loving or anything like that. I feel like women can be competitive with each other in a way that isn't the same. Twins Before a Mirror. Thank you. I thought it was called Sisters. I never remember the name. But that actually is a reference to Girl Before a Mirror, the Picasso painting, which is one that I grew up with in my parents' house. And I think about that painting a lot. So yeah, yeah. This one, I don't know what to say about this one. Very sad. I guess this is another one. Yeah, I use that. Both of them. I use the glaze on top to try and get like more of a harmonious colors going on. I kind of remember that like when I painted this, I was clearly feeling very sad. My mom, she has Alzheimer's, and this was around the time where I had to move her into a memory care facility. And I was just feeling very distraught about it. And I just remember painting this and feeling sad for her and, you know, missing her very much. I know it doesn't look like it in that painting, but that was my emotional state. And the one on the right is more of a yellow type of glaze. I've got some of the texture going on in the background there. Very subtle. This one is another one from imagination. I'm trying, I feel like I'm trying to reach for something and I'm not quite there yet. I keep experimenting with different things, and at some point I think I'll eventually get it, I hope. I don't know, maybe other artists feel like this, like every show they're like, when they put it up, it's like, I'm done with this, I'm on to the next thing. Okay. This one is Sisters. Okay, that one is Sisters. That one is the one in the middle, I forget.
Platinum Queen.
Platinum Queen, very nice. So yeah, the Sisters one, yeah, I like the lily there. That's a different type of flower, in case you didn't know. But this is kind of like, I was thinking about like the gaze in art, like the female gaze looking back at the viewer. And I was just like, I just always think like every time there's like a beautiful woman, there's another woman judging her, you know? So that's all I could really, that's what I think about, is just like there's a woman just like doing her own thing, and there's another woman there who has to have something to think about. So that's that. And this is Platinum Queen. I feel like I started this as a more abstract painting, and then it kind of like just on its own in my sketchbook. In my sketchbook, it was like a very abstract piece, and then somehow it just came into this big wild-haired doll thing. And this was one, I don't think I actually did any glazing on this, but I really like how the red in the stems came out. I think that really helped with the like unifying the colors a little more. It's got a lot of that texture around her body there. She's got her eyes very creepy, as should be. And I remember trying to feel like I wanted it to feel like I actually wanted this one to feel unfinished, which sometimes they feel unfinished and that's not the case, but I was really going for like the hair coming out of the canvas on the bottom there. Kind of the white. Oh, thank you, Tina. Appreciate that.
So Jeanne, how do you feel when people reference your paintings as creepy?
I feel like I'm missing the mark a lot. Like,
so what are you driving at?
well, what happens to me a lot is that I think I listen to the painting too much. Like I initially start to try to make the painting beautiful, and then I see something's going on in the painting and it wants to be its own thing. And I just like let it go. Like if it wants to be a creepy doll, I just kind of like let loose. I don't really reel it back in. And that's fine. I'll just have a bunch of those and that's okay. This one I think is Pixies. And oh, so I used to work at Painting with a Twist. And so I've got a couple of these little cutout things from there. So I've been painting on those, and they kind of have their hair braided together, which is like, you know, how awful must that be to be like stuck to another person like that? And then I think I have these. Oh, this one might be my favorite. The forged doll there on the left. I think that was useful, having the hand there as like a scale object for the doll too. And something about the hand feels a little like, I don't know, like nurturing. Like I feel like it kind of helps. And maybe since the doll isn't showing teeth, that too, maybe it looks a little more welcoming. Something about this painting makes it feel a little more beautiful to me. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing that, so I feel like I kind of like hit the mark on this one. And this was another one where I kind of used a gradient. You can see up top, there's like a purple wash, and then towards the bottom, there's more of like a reddish pinkish one. So it kind of flows down like that. And these are like little lily of the valley flowers here. I don't know. Sometimes I just like the flower's name, and I think, like lily of the valley. That sounds really pretty, you know.
She doesn't seem to be aware of the hand.
Yes, they seem very unaware. A lot of them do. A lot of them seem like they're not sure about what's going on around them. They seem like things are just happening too. These last two, I really don't know what to say about. I was just, something I did in my sketchbook were these like dolls with rainbows coming out of their mouths. And I think it's very like, I don't know, like, I guess there's like a social media filter that does that. So it's like very like poppy or whatever you want to call it. But I don't know. Sometimes I just get, sometimes I just have like, I want to see that as a painting. So I'll make it as a painting. I'll try my best. And the last one had a very dark wash on it, a glaze on it, and it lost a lot of that rainbow color. So this is one that I'll probably get back and work into a little more. She's got a lot of that texture in her hair. Oh, and shout out to my dad. He did all the frames for this exhibition, so thanks to him very, very much. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jeanne.
Thank you.
So next we will visit Kitty Caparella. Hello, Kitty. You're muted. See.
Okay.
Hello.
Well, I as the fourth graduate of CAFA, I was trained as a printmaker. However, I'm now doing paintings. So we move forward and backwards, depending on what our interests are. I'm working in this combination of encaustic and paint. It's a paint stick that is available in, stores and stuff. Anyway, the images, I usually use my camera to take photographs of images of something that I'm curious about. And in this case, it was the things that keep the sand on the shore. But in any case, they're full of rocks and they're interesting. And so what I do is I take a look at these things. I've taken a look in this group of paintings and see the abstract images, because I'm interested in the abstractions. And in this case, it was pieces of rock that were drawn in the sand to this other big rock. And each one is curious to me as to how they arrived at this location, etc. So what I've done is paint them different colors so that they are different, they represent different things to me. This next one reminded me of an ancient wall of writing And so I call it the Essays for the Ages, I think it is. And it was on, it actually appears like that on the wall, but not quite in the rhythm of the paint squares. In any case, the images, I was attracted to that image, especially because of, it's almost like religious to me. Let's see, we're going around. Okay, this is reminded me of, the first one reminds me of being on, you know, opposing mountains and having trails that you go by, and there's these other mountains in the front or ahead of you, or there's storms. And so it's like you're getting an image, a picture of what's coming ahead. So when I do these images, a lot of times there's a story that comes up in my own mind as to, you know, what these could represent if they were in real life.
So Kitty, why did you choose encaustic as opposed to oil paint or something else?
I took a class at the Women's Art Center in New York, and really fell in love with the medium. I'm a printmaker by training, and the encaustic is thicker than oil paint, and I like to be able to manipulate it in a certain way. And
do you heat it and melt it?
no, it's already melted. It comes in sticks, like a piece of chalk, only it's creamy. It's very creamy. And so I can use brushes on it to get some of it off, or use it directly on I paint on wooden little box-like things. And this one reminded me of just oil, not oil, but paint spilling over the canvas. And I like the movement in with the movement in the piece itself, plus the fact that there's a distance in there that kind of comes through, with the lighter brown being forward and the black being back, you know, pushed back.
So you're working with a limited palette this time.
Yeah. And I was going into the jetty, like taking photographs into the jetty. So I was getting shapes, different kinds of shapes, and then using those shapes and then manipulating the shapes, and then adding color to the shapes, etc. But they're all in a, they're not you know, red, blue, yellow. They're the colors of that you would find on the beach. This this piece here, I was very proud of, because I was trying to get a kind of stone that appeared in the jetty, that I didn't think I would be able to get, but it did come out pretty good as far as I was concerned. But the thing that I'm trying to do here is show the unstableness of what is going on in this image. The one piece and the sand in the far background. This next one here is, it looks like a drain, like the sand is going down a drain, but it's, I like the shape of it. I like the shape and how it kind of opens up to the brightness outside of the jetty.
So Kitty, what is it about the beach that attracts you?
Well, it was the jetties that were attracting me. And what I've done is each time I do a series like this, I'm focused on a certain image that I keep finding ways to look at in different angles and stuff. And so that finding that jetty was kind of fun because I could, you know, see how the sand was coming down on some parts of it and not on other parts. And it just tickled me. What can I say? I don't think you describe a painting as having tickled you, but you know, what the hell?
Why not?
Why not? Why not? But some of them have, you know, texture, much more texture than others. Some are, now this ended up looking like a car going around a ravine on a mountain. And that was never the intent. It just, when I was painting it, this is what emerged. And so I figured, well, okay, it's talking to me. Let it go. I really do like the oil and encaustic, which gives it a little bit more body than oil paint or doing straight encaustic, because that's harder to manipulate. But this had to do with what was on the beach and the abstract images. I'm in search of abstract images, and if I can find one like this, I'm going to, you know, take photograph of it and then change it around and do what I make it talk to me.
This one's called Peering Out.
The one on the right?
Yes.
Yeah, because of the light coming through. That's light coming through sand and you know, a dark wall behind it. This one is very much shadows, frankly, on a darker surface, where I just like the way those images were, the way I found them, and they were odd shaped. They didn't represent anything in our real world in terms of animals, people, etc.
You call this one Escape.
Right. And it is, because the the dark is the dark shadows, and they're escaping from the sand. They're making their own marks as far as an impression on the work. And
This one's bridging.
oh yeah, well, that actually is exactly the way it was.
So someone's asking if you draw first or you just start painting.
Well, in some cases I do some sketches. Other times I take part of an image and draw it. So it's not the whole image. It might be part of the image. It might be part of what I see. And so that I'm looking for the abstractions of the whole work. Each piece, it represents to me an abstraction of that, body of work that I was looking at on the beach. The whole thing. You don't see. These two pieces actually are kind of unrelated to the beach stuff. I had worked on this left one for a while, and I just loved the angles that I was doing. It's almost serene, these angles to me, like not kings or queens, but they're symbolic as far as royalty, as far as images that could represent royalty, but they're only a part of it.
Yes, they seem very regal.
Yeah. And these are two balls sort of falling in space, in a dark space.
Yeah, you've called it tumbling.
Tumbling, yes. I'm just after the abstractions, and there's not a whole lot you can say about the abstractions, except when you find it, then you manipulate it, and then you do it again, and you find eventually find something that clicks inside of you that makes sense to you. It may not make sense to anybody else, but that's what I was doing.
Well, that makes sense to us.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Kitty. All right, now we're going to visit Anne Marble.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Tina, for doing the hard work of looking at all this. Thank you, both of you, for making the show look so good. I mean, it's great to see these pieces on a clean wall, well lit, as opposed to whatever I do with them in my studio when I'm done, where they're kind of piled and clustered, and this really gives them breathing space, and it gives them a new look. First, a little bit about me. And let me just say, Tina, here's what I'm planning on doing, is just talking about a couple of pieces. This one would be one of them, but more about where this comes from and why I do it, why I think I do it anyway. Let me just say a little bit about this piece first, since we're here. This was inspired by the tremendous agony of the border situation between the US and Mexico, and the jamming of people up against the fence and in internment facilities, including children. And it really broke my heart. And I thought I would like to try to express this somehow. What this is made out of is cast paper. On top of each one of these faces are heads, clay heads that I made. I think I made about a total of 500 of them. Some of them didn't turn out, so I didn't use them all. But anyway, so it was very, very long process, but it gave me time to think and process. And I think I felt like I said something after this. At least I hope I did. But it was a way of letting out my own agony over this, what was going on. So it's a large piece. It's about 2 feet by 3 feet. And I really enjoyed it. Let me tell you a little bit about me. I was born in Ohio, grew up in Michigan, and went to college in Indiana. And how did I get out here? I was chasing a boyfriend who disappeared after I got here. But I stayed. And I've been here ever since, and I am so glad. Things happen for a reason. I'm really sure of that. So I would have never been part of Cerulean Gallery. I would have never probably done this kind of work. I did not go to art school. This is self-taught as well as taught from various mentors of mine. I'll just mention some of them. Tim Hawksworth, Jacqueline Maligny, and Marianne Mitchell. There's others, but they have inspired and supported me for a long time. And even when I say, what on earth am I doing? They will see something positive and keep me going. My process is, or rather my process, I use all kinds of different materials. This is wire, stuffed with wire with straw and covered with abaca paper pulp. So those are just a couple of materials that I use. I also include fiber and let's see what else, sticks. You'll see more of it later. This is bamboo and more abaca, which again, a lot of these pieces look like they're beginning to fly to me. And what I think I'm trying to do overall here is, in my own way, respond to what the circumstances are going around me and the world. The pandemic, the war, the immigration, the political situation. I say, how do I respond to this? And I feel like my response is to go inwards and to work with my hands with natural materials. And that's why I think I migrated to 3D from painting and printmaking, because I needed to get my hands into the materials and move them and shape them and play with them. This is another one of those pieces. It's let me just say this. My process is not a process. I do not keep a sketchbook except to record some ideas. Most of my ideas come to me inconveniently, sometimes in the middle of the night, or when I'm driving, whatever, when I'm kind of not having anything else to do. I look at a lot of art. So I think it's an amalgamation of some of these, and they're really impulse pieces that respond to something in me and around me, and I'm trying to connect those. There are a lot of knitted wire pieces here. I got fascinated by knitting fine gauge wire and then dipping it into paper pulp and adding pigment. And then in this case, manipulating the flat pieces after they had dried. So there are a lot of wire pieces in here, a lot of them knitted, some over a form. In any case, I am looking for something basically organic. And I think, Christine, you talked about this with your work. Shadows are really integral piece of the artwork. Without the shadows, you wouldn't see the dimension. And they add a beauty and a meaning, I think, to it that you can't predict until you're finished and you put them up on the wall and you light them and you see what happens. I spent some time in California over the winter, and I said, I'm not doing any art while I'm here. I'm here for 6 weeks. But I started taking long walks with my dog, and I saw these vines, and I said, I want to handle these vines. I want to feel them. I want to twist them. I want to turn them. I want to shape them. So these are vines, which are dried, and the little squirrely pieces are part of palm inflorescence that are dried that I picked up on the median strip in San Francisco. My goodness, I sent it back and there it is. And again, the shadows are something that really is a key part. And there's just no way you can design art, design a piece in advance to know what the shadows will be. This is the case too in this piece, which is I call masts. And this speaks to the fact that I really don't have a plan often. I'm constantly experimenting and ending up with a pile of pieces that I'm not sure whether they're done or not, or what else they might need. And I don't throw them out. I just keep them. And as people who know me will attest to, I'm a little bit of a mess. And so they're all over my studio. And which the upside is, I look at them and I start associating the pieces together sometimes. These are sticks that I found on a farm that I just started sticking into styrofoam, and I really like the shapes. And I said, I feel something with this. I feel this kind of updraft of feeling, which is so in opposition to what the world is right now. And then I said, this still needs something. I didn't say this consciously, but the boat showed up that I had made as a separate piece. And I again, it's unintentional, but it's intentional. They decided to get married, so to speak. And I think it works pretty well. I'm always kind of in awe of what happens when you step back and stop analyzing. The little sails are made out of paper, thin pieces of paper that have dried and stretched and become very thin. The next one is another knitted piece with wire that again, dipped in pulp, and the holes are intentional. I actually try to make holes sometimes. Sometimes I don't. If they just show up, I let them. And then I added pigment. And the rust is intentional. I use wire that will rust when I do these pieces. So I think it adds to something that looks more natural, kind of coming out of the earth. I think that I'm calling this Elijah's cloak. I don't name things in advance. I struggle naming things. But there it is. This again is incredible found materials and natural materials. The bowl is made out of straw and milkweed seeds that I picked up off the ground, and the ball inside is wire dipped in a Japanese persimmon juice, which makes it brown. One of my teachers told me about this, and I can't get enough of it now. But it's so utterly organic, and it changes color through time. It deepens and reacts with the wire and changes its personality. And I really like that because it's never finished. It's evolving. Do we want to look at the floating piece? This is another piece that the pieces found each other. There are 3 pieces, and they weren't meant to be made as one, but they were just sitting there in my messy studio, and I picked them up and I started playing with them. What they are chicken wire dipped in paper pulp, and there's a little bit of color in it. You have to look for it, but it's called Winged Migration. I'm fascinated with birds, and I think I just can't help it when something like this shows up. Just reminds me of a flapping bird, and again, something that's natural of the earth, that's unchangeable, that goes on regardless of what we humans are doing crazily to ourselves. And then beneath that piece there are a series of 3 bowls, and I did have intention here. I wanted these to be lighter than air, and I know that's impossible, but I wanted to suggest that. They're made out of one thin piece of abaca paper that I used wax on, and this yellow one actually is tea bag, old tea bags, sort of like Christine. By the way, we're friends, so we feed off of each other. And then caustic wax was added after the fact, which makes the whole thing much more translucent and light. This one is another one in the series. Again, this is the 3rd one. Again, the wax, I think, makes it absolutely unpredictably beautiful, and the lightness of it it just speaks for itself. what can I say? This is another, you might say, found piece. Two kinds of paper, flax paper and amate paper that I'd worked on separately, never thinking they would go together. And there they were in this messy pile of mine, and I just grabbed them and put one piece inside the other and said, I think I like this. And added that's flax roving, the purple flax roving, which I think suggests something either going in or coming out of this form. It's neither and it's both. It's very ragged looking, as are a number of my pieces. This is probably the most organic of all of them. So let's see, I think, are there these two little pieces that are, yeah. Oh yeah, you can see it. These are in response to the horror of the people who were stuck in the underground steam tunnels at the steel plant in Mariupol, Ukraine. It was, the images were just overwhelming to me. The fact that they were in there for so long, and actually many of them survived. But I just carried that heaviness with me the whole time they were in there. And so this piece represents that entrapment, as does the next piece. These were both made very quickly with things that I had already done. The clay heads. This is called what?
Unspeakable.
Thank you. Unspeakable. And clay heads that are just, held. They're imprisoned by the rope. And it just leaves you with the feeling of agony again. I can't help but let some of these difficult world scenarios seep into my work because they're there, and I feel I need to speak to them, as I do, I think, with all the pieces. I'm speaking to with the non-figurative pieces to what's natural and what's organic and what just comes out of who knows where, which is a wonderful and a beautiful thing, at least to me. And so in contrast to the world we live in right now. So thank you all for looking and being patient. And if you have questions, feel free to ask me. You can go through the gallery, of course, if you want to see, to know more about any of these pieces. So thank you all for your attention. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Anne. And thank you, Kitty, Jeanne, Christine, and Michael for the talk tonight and your wonderful work. Are there any last questions for any of the artists? You can just speak them if you have them. All right, if not, we'll end here. The show again is up through June 26th, if you can make it. Otherwise, thanks again for coming, and hope you have a great night.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks,
Thank you, Michael.
Sure.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Bye.